Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F. I'm Chaim Ben Pesach. We have another program with the great David Ben Moshe. On this program, you're going to learn about Kamala Harris's Jewish liaison. She picked someone to represent her in the Jewish community. You have never seen such a Jewish anti-Semite like this. You won't believe this Jewish anti-Semite's history. This is who she picks to represent her among Jewish voters. Wait till you see his history with J Street and with the extreme left, anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, just scum. We're going to be discussing that. It's important. And by the way, it's important for you to watch this show so that you'll know what to say to friends and neighbors and other people when you go online to argue. You know, you got to know how to argue your points. And we give you a lot of good arguments on this show. So, and you should also try to spread the word about the show. But especially, this gives you good arguments about what you should be saying with this critical upcoming election. We're also going to, I hope we'll have time to talk about the very, very critical situation with the Hilltop Youth, which is really reaching a boiling point in Judea and Samaria now. The very future of Israel is going to be decided on that front. And you know that J.T.F. is deeply involved with the Hilltop Youth, who are the only hope we have for preventing a so-called Palestinian state. So we're going to get into all of that. But first, this program is dedicated to a refuah shlema, complete recovery for Hadassah bat Yitzchak, Liat bat Shifra, Niv ben Bina, Yitzchak ben Sarah, Sharon Mitman, Shlomo ben Sarah, Dorit bat Sarah, Reuven ben Shoshana, and Ruth bat Sarah. And to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls, for Malka bat Meir, Allegra bat Shlomo, Daniel 19, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Zeb ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Reuven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Rav Meir Kahana, Rav Binyamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi bat Liba, Yosef ben Meir, Robert Mitman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat, and Yair Levine. Let me just start off by saying that you see this, what looks like a black eye under my eye. You see this mark under my eye. So people think I was in a fight. No, I wasn't in a fight, unfortunately. No, I was not in a fight. I say unfortunately because there's some people who deserve to get a belting or two. There are people in the world that deserve it. But I wasn't in any fight here. What happened is I've had a lot of pressure on me lately because of the situation in Israel and all the things that I'm involved with, a million things that I don't even have time to speak about sometimes on the program. And because of all of that, even though I feel fine, I don't feel nervous or upset I feel fine. And my blood pressure is excellent and all my health seems to be excellent. But for some reason, when I'm under a lot of pressure, blood vessels burst in certain parts of my face. Sometimes it bursts over here in between the eyes. Sometimes they burst on my nose over here and over here near the eye. Sometimes they burst under my eyes. I sometimes get that. Sometimes happens to me, but no, I was not in a fight. And it's nothing, by the way. It's no big deal. But that's the reason for that. Okay, just so that it won't be a distraction. The Jewish advisors to Vice President Kamala Harris said to her, you're having a problem with Jewish voters, even though you're very strong in the polls. And the polls, by the way, show her in the lead, unfortunately. She's leading right now. I hope and pray that Donald Trump is able to overtake her, that something happens, they're able to overtake her, because right now she's leading by about 3 or 4% in the polls on average. And that doesn't look good. But we're hoping 3 or 4% is not insurmountable. We're hoping that we can overcome that. And one thing I will say before I get to the story that I'm going to tell you about her Jewish liaison, her so-called Jewish liaison. I remember when Barack Hussein Osama was nominated for president in 2008, and I think many of us remember that. Those of us who aren't very young would remember that. And unfortunately, the Republicans nominated the worst candidate you could possibly nominate, John McCain, who was a horrific candidate, terrible. And of course, we supported McCain, J.T.F. supported McCain because Obama was so bad, we had no choice, even though we hated McCain, but we supported him because, and we hated Mitt Romney, but we supported him also because Obama was so terrible, we felt that we had to support him as a lesser of the evils. But anyway, I remember the frustration that I felt. And you know, the Obama campaign and the Harris campaign, there's a lot of similarities there. The media promoting them, the media idolizing them and worshiping them and talking about how historic this is and how wonderful it is and protecting and shielding them. It's the same thing that happened with Obama in 2008. We see history repeating itself. God forbid that we'll have the same results, because Obama won in 2008 and in 2012. He won twice, and he won by a comfortable margin. God forbid that we'll see a repeat performance. But I remember at the time that one of the things we saw then was that John McCain refused to criticize Obama in any meaningful way. I mean, Obama's a Muslim. He literally is a Muslim who declared himself a Muslim. He signed forms checking off that he was a Muslim. He made statements that make it clear that he's a Muslim. He attended Louis Farrakhan's Million Man March. None of that came out in the campaign, and McCain refused to use any of that. And McCain immediately condemned anyone who tried to bring that up. J.T.F. tried to bring it up. We had an organization called Jews Against Obama, and we tried to bring that up, if you recall, those of you that were with us then. And everybody condemned us, and John McCain condemned anyone that brings up this and says, no, he's a Christian, McCain said. McCain right away defended him and was lying on behalf of his opponent. It was unbelievable. It was so frustrating. So I just want to give you a little good news here. One good thing about Donald Trump, that he doesn't do. Okay? He doesn't kiss the tuchus of his opponent like John McCain and Mitt Romney and all these other Republicans have done in the past. That he doesn't do. Thank God, at least we have a Republican candidate who attacks his opponents for a change. That is good. He should attack. She deserves to be attacked. She's evil. And she'll destroy this country. And God forbid, she could bring a Holocaust against the Jews in Israel, God forbid. She's evil. And she should be attacked. At every opportunity, she should be attacked. She's a lethal danger to everything good in this world. And Donald Trump does attack her. And he doesn't make it nice and make it diplomatic, because it's going to turn off the suburban voters and the moderates and the centrist voters. Oh, they're turned off. They don't like that. Oh, please. They, by the way, call Trump everything under the sun. There's not a single name they don't use against him, and make all the personal attacks against him. And the media says that's fine. Oh, yes, the media joins in and also makes the personal attacks on Trump and untrue attacks. But if Trump responds and says that she has a low IQ, which she clearly does, if Trump responds, it's a personal insult. She insults Trump every 3 seconds with her scripted speeches, because she doesn't know how to speak. If she doesn't have a scripted speech in front of her, she doesn't know how to speak. Everything is a word salad and a rotten sound.
And giggles.
And giggles and just horrific. And she says Trump and J.D. Vance are weird. Her and Tim Walz say they're weird. They're weird? Tampon Tim is calling J.D. Vance and Donald Trump weird. Tampon Tim, who put tampons in boys' bathrooms just in case a girl who identifies as a boy wants to go into the boys' bathroom and needs a tampon. And so he required that tampons be put in all the bathrooms in Minnesota, all the boys' bathrooms. And he calls her weird. I mean, he calls Donald Trump weird and calls J.D. Vance weird. I don't think there's anything weird about them. And the personal insults and the attacks and the unfair campaigning, but at least Donald Trump answers. At least he tries to answer back as best he can. The only thing is the whole media, 90% of the media, except for Fox and a few exceptions, but 90% of the media is against him. So he's running it's very hard to run a campaign like this. And anything he says about her is racist and sexist and this and that. You're not allowed to say anything. You're not allowed to criticize. You're not allowed to open your mouth against these evil people. And if you tell even a little bit of the truth, everybody comes down on you like a ton of bricks. I mean, but at least he has the guts to attack her. And that is what we need. We don't need someone like Mitt Romney in the debate talking about how he kept praising Obama in the debate with Obama. When Mitt Romney was running against him in 2012, he was the Republican candidate against Obama in 2012. And Romney, in the debate, he kept praising Obama, kept praising his opponent. I thought Romney was going to do a commercial for Obama's reelection already. It was unbelievable how much he was praising him. Oh, yes, I agree. His foreign policy, I agree. He's a very, and then John McCain. No, he's a very decent person. And you have nothing to worry about if he gets elected. This is what he said. A woman said he's an Arab. One of his supporters, they had questions and answers from the audience. So one of the supporters says, "Oh, I'm very worried about Obama. I think he's an Arab." A woman said, okay? And McCain said, "No, that's not true. He's a very decent, he's a patriotic American, a very honest, decent person, and a Christian." This is the way you run your campaign? That woman should have been running for president instead of McCain. Anyway, thankfully, we have a candidate that at least answers. At least he responds. Now, you know I preferred Ron DeSantis, who would have responded. I think Ron DeSantis would have responded even better, but still, at least Donald Trump responds. And that's a relief after what we had in the past, the nightmare that we had in the past with the candidates of the past. Now, her Jewish advisors said, you know, one of the groups, though, that we're having a real problem with are Jewish voters. The polls show that in New York, about half of the Jewish vote is going to Trump, which is, traditionally Jews vote overwhelmingly Democrat in America. Unfortunately, Jews in America are left-wing. Many of them are left-wing. In Israel, the Jews are overwhelmingly right-wing. Those are where the good Jews live. In America, you have a Democrat majority among the Jews. And in New York, you have a lot of Orthodox Jews. And a lot of traditional Jews. So the Jewish vote, the latest poll, the Siena poll, said Trump 50% among Jewish voters. Trump 50%, Kamala Harris 49%. He actually was leading her by 1 point in New York among Jewish voters, and people were shocked. So,
Ryan, how anti-Semitic does the Democrat Party have to get before the Jews totally abandon it? It's like, don't feed the crocodiles, and they're walking right up to the crocodile.
This is the same American Jewish community that in the 1940s voted for and supported Franklin Delano Roosevelt, while 6 million Jews were being burned and gassed in the worst crime in human history, the Holocaust. And Roosevelt, he was responsible for the Holocaust. He could have stopped it at any time. He did everything he could to make sure those Jews would be murdered, and the Jews still voted overwhelmingly for him. So this is a Jewish community where a lot of the people, unfortunately, you have a lot of the voters there who are certifiably insane. They're just insane. Obama, a black Muslim anti-Semite who supports Louis Farrakhan, got 78% of the Jewish vote in 2008. How could people vote for someone who these Democrats, they hate your guts. They want you dead. They literally want you dead. They support your mass murderers. And you're voting for them? You don't think that only a mental case would do something like that? Even mental cases wouldn't do that. You are more insane if you tried to check these Jewish Democrats into a mental asylum. You wouldn't be able to put them in a mental asylum because the other patients would rebel. They say, I don't want to be locked up with these crazy people. You're too insane for a mental asylum. I mean, this is just unbelievable. And Tim Walz, that anti-Semite, that Jew-hating beast from Minnesota, who gives $100,000 to someone who does videos praising Hitler? To an imam who praises Hitler? And he gives $100,000 from Minnesota taxpayers to help the imam? And this is who you're voting for? And all these Jewish Democrats, Kamala. And by the way, Kamala, they also make a big deal. This is, we're getting into this thing like the N word. You can't, there's certain, they create a sense of terror where you're not allowed to say anything. Kamala. And by the way, when I say the N word, it's because you're allowed to say the K word about Jews. You're allowed to say ethnic attacks against Jews or Irish or Italians or whites, or that's all perfectly acceptable, or Hispanics or Chinese or Asians. That's all acceptable. But the N word, you're not even allowed to say when you're quoting somebody, even to condemn them. You're not even allowed to repeat the word. And the same, this same hysterical censorship. We have this hysterical censorship from people who tell us, you didn't say it right. By the way, I don't even know if it's Kamala or Kamala. Okay?
I think it's Kamala, but the thing is, she's part Jamaican. In Jamaican English, you accent the penultimate syllable. So that would make her Kamala.
Whatever it is, I want to say the opposite. Okay? I have no respect for her. She's below all contempt. We should say the opposite. Whatever she doesn't like, that's what we should call her. Okay? Anyway, but did you see the thing where they went crazy on this conservative woman? Did you?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, it was on CNN. There were like 5 panelists there, 1 conservative against 4 leftists. That's usually how they have. That's usually their. Usually it's all 5 or even the so-called conservative is usually a so-called conservative who explains why you have to support Harris. Anyway, or a former Republican who will tell you why you have to support Harris. That's usually what they have. That's their panels. That's their even-handed panels. But anyway, you had a conservative woman on there, and she said Kamala, or she said Kamala instead of Kamala, or well, I don't know what, you say tomato, I say tomato. I don't know what, it's so absurd. But so they had her on there, and they went crazy. What? You don't say her name properly? This is racism. What racism? What the hell are you talking about? That they support Farrakhan, that's not racism. Farrakhan, who said, I like when the Jews call Farrakhan Hitler. Hitler was a great man. Hitler was a very great man. That's not racism. And saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which is a call for genocide against the Jews, wiping the Jews out and committing another Holocaust. That's not racism. No. But if you don't say Kamala or potato or potato, that's racism. Anyway.
And then you ask these dummies, these people on college campuses who call for Palestine from the river to the sea, and you ask them what river, what sea. They have no clue.
Right. Well, they don't even know what country they're in now. Actually, neither do I. I don't recognize the country. I don't know what country we're in anymore. I don't recognize it either. But anyway, so her Jewish advisor said, you got to pick someone to represent you in the Jewish community, to be your Jewish liaison, so that Jewish leaders and Jewish representatives could come to this person when they want to give a message to you, instead of having to go directly to you because they can't always get to you directly. You have to have a Jewish liaison to represent you in the Jewish community. So she said, okay, that's a good idea. So her and her self-hating Jewish husband, her capo Judenrat husband, Emhoff, and I guess maybe her daughter-in-law also participated. Her daughter-in-law who raised $8 million for a Hamas front group and raises money for the anti-Semitic demonstrators on university campuses. That's Kamala Harris's daughter-in-law, by the way. Her whole family's like that. So they picked somebody who was involved with J Street, an organization, a lobby that was formed to work against Israel, a lobby of self-hating Jewish traitors who work against Israel, who work to destroy Israel, who work to get the United States to pressure Israel to commit suicide, who fund, J Street funds anti-Israel organizations in Israel that work to undermine Israel within the Jewish state. By the way, organizations that try to destroy Israel from within, they're permitted in the Jewish. I'm not allowed to make Aliyah. I'm not allowed to go to Israel. But organizations that want to destroy the state from within, they're perfectly fine. They can do anything they want there. And she picked someone who was involved with J Street, with this Jew-hating, vicious organization wants to destroy Israel. His name is Ilan Goldenberg. And he, among other things, by the way, before he joined the Biden administration, Ilan Goldenberg criticized Biden. He said Biden is not anti-Israel enough. He said Biden is old school and he doesn't publicly criticize the Israelis the way you're supposed to. He doesn't publicly criticize them as much as you're supposed to. This is a statement he made in 2021. He also said moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, which really was accomplished nothing for Israel, to tell you the truth. But he said that moving the U.S. embassy to Israel was a bad idea because he said that belongs to the so-called Palestinians, a people, by the way, that doesn't exist. There are no Palestinians. There is no Palestine. 60 years ago, the Arabs themselves always said there's no such thing as a Palestinian people. But anyway, he also was involved with and is a strong supporter of the accord that was agreed to under Obama to enable Iran to build nuclear bombs. They had an accord which enables Iran to turn into a nuclear bomb building factory, where they're going to have a huge nuclear arsenal. This was all under the Obama administration. This was permitted, and he applauded that. He thought that was a great idea. And in the end of his administration, when Obama was leaving office at the end of his second term, one of the things he did to spit in the face of the Jews again was he didn't veto an anti-Israel UN resolution. The United States traditionally vetoes anti-Israel UN resolutions in the Security Council. I, by the way, don't think it's a big deal. I don't care about that. But he did it just to give the Jews another kick on his way out, Obama, to show what a Jew hater he is. And over 100 Democrat members of the House signed a petition condemning Obama for doing this to Israel. Over 100 Democrats in the House condemned him for this, but not Ilan Goldenberg. He applauded Obama for doing this. He said it's about time we started supporting these anti-Israel resolutions in the UN. This is her Jewish liaison. This is her representative to the Jewish community. And he really does represent her. He represents her views of wanting to destroy Israel. He wants to destroy Israel, and so does she. And so does his self-hating husband, Emhoff, who was talking about, who talked at the Democrat convention. He made a speech about the romance and how they had a romance. Well, romance. She slept with Willie Brown, who was in his 80s. Mayor of San Francisco, she was sleeping with him in order to get ahead as DA, in order to get his endorsement and win primaries for DA and for Attorney General of California. She offered herself to everybody to get ahead. By the way, that's a great feminist message, right? How do you get ahead? You sleep with all these men. You sleep with all these men who are 30 and 40 years older than you. That's a good example of women's rights. She represents that's her. By the way, that's her biography. That's her history. And yes, she is dumb. Dumb. She can't answer questions. Even when they asked her, that she went in front of the press to answer 2 or 3 questions because they're criticizing her for not answering anything. She doesn't hold press conferences. She doesn't do interviews. She doesn't want to do anything. So the critics there's a little bit of criticism, at least, certainly from Donald Trump and from Republicans and conservatives and from anybody who's saying they're beginning to critique. What is this that she doesn't do interviews? She's afraid to do anything. She had to answer like 2 or 3 simple softball questions from her fans in the news media, and she couldn't handle it. She kept repeating the same thing, the same thing over again. Like didn't know what she was saying. It was, the past.
Maybe that's why the young people like her, because she's dumb, because they figure she's just like us. We don't know anything, and she doesn't know anything. That's the one we want to support.
Well, Anyway, if there are young people out there with brains, they'll be supporting Donald Trump. That's for sure. And, I mean, but now, what do you think is going to happen to Israel if this anti-Semite, together with Tim Walz and together with her Judenrat husband, what do you think is going to happen to Israel if they win in November? What do you think they'll do to Israel? She's already said that her big priority is going to be a Palestinian state, which means Israel goes back to borders that are 6 to 9 miles wide. That's suicide. And she will do everything to push and pressure. And she, by the way, Biden has been terrible for Israel, but she complains that Biden is not anti-Israel enough. She is always complaining, no, you've got to be, no, they did in Gaza. They did in Gaza. The Arabs in Gaza want genocide. They want a Holocaust against the Jews. They support an organization that openly promises to exterminate the whole Jewish people. And Kamala Harris says we should be on their side. What's happening to them is terrible. What the Israelis are doing is terrible. That's Kamala Harris. That's the Democrat Party. And by the way, the late Joe Biden, in his speech at the Democrat convention, you saw what he said about the demonstrators that chant for death to Israel and death to America. He said, they have a point. I understand them. They have a point. I don't know if you saw that, but he included.
No, I couldn't watch his speech.
He thought they have a point. Well, I mean, evil. And if you vote for that party and you vote for those candidates, you're evil. And God will not forgive you. God will not forgive you if you support those evil people. You will answer for that someday, because you're supporting the destruction of your people. If you're a Jew and you vote for them, you're supporting the destruction of your own people. And there's no excuse for that. It's absolutely incomprehensible. Now, let me just quickly say, there were 4 destructions of Jewish communities of the Hilltop Youth in Judea and Samaria this past week. 4 times they went in to destroy. And it's because of reports, like you had a report on NBC News from Burqa. Burqa is an Arab town where 50% of the residents have left. Tens of thousands of Arabs are leaving. And they say they're leaving because of the Hilltop Youth. They say the Hilltop Youth are taking over huge tracts of land, and they're the ones grazing, and they're closing them out. And they say they're afraid of the Hilltop Youth because the Hilltop Youth, all these crazy things they imagine about the Hilltop Youth. And so large numbers of, they're convincing themselves of this. So they're terrified of the Hilltop Youth. And so the Hilltop Youth, and so many Arabs are leaving Judea and Samaria because of this. And so Israel is, this is the one front where Israel's winning because of the Hilltop Youth. And so the Israeli government has to step in now to stop that. They don't want Israel to win. They don't want the Arabs to leave. They don't want Israel to win. Imagine I mean, the treason of these governments, whether it's governments in the United States or Europe or Israel, these are traitors to their own countries. Anyway, the Hilltop Youth, though, come and rebuild, and they come again and come again. And without J.T.F, they'd have a very hard time. A lot of their support, comes from us. Not all of it. They also raise funds and get support from supporters in Israel. And the supporters in Israel, they have their own fundraising apparatus, donate online apparatus in Israel. But from outside of Israel, J.T.F is the only group supporting them. This is the one group that if you really care about justice and truth and want to really fight against evil, this is the one group that you should be backing. This is the group you should be backing. The most righteous, magnificent, heroic young Jews giving up everything, sacrificing everything. They were working, they had to rebuild the communities, and they're working, and I get worried about them because they're working in the hot desert sun, to rebuild, and I'm worried about them. you know, because God forbid, I don't want them to get skin cancer or other things. You know, some of them are light-skinned. Not all of them, but some of them are light-skinned. And so, you know, I get worried about them, but they go and they spend hours working in the hot sun and rebuilding and really very hard work and go without sleep so that they could work into the night. You know, they are really such magnificent people. How can you turn away from them and not support them? Seeing people like this, how can you not support them? How can you not say, wow, this is one thing that gives me hope in this generation, to see people like this. This is what gives me hope that it's not over, that the world can be salvaged. This is what gives me hope. This is truly what the Jews are supposed to be, a light unto the nations and a holy nation, a nation of priests. This is truly what the Jews are supposed to be. There are two ways you can support the heroic Hilltop Youth, that you can be part of this. You can be part of this. And by the way, 100% of our budget goes to the Hilltop Youth, to the struggle of the Hilltop Youth. So if you help us, you know that every penny is going to them. We don't pay salaries. I mean, nobody in the United States here is getting a salary. Anyway, I'm not going to go into again how much I'm giving, but you see how I live. I'm not going to go in. I'm not going to go into that. And believe me, I could live much better than this. Okay, I could live much better than this, but I give whatever I earn in life, I give to them and then some. And I'm so happy to do it. I am so happy to do it. It is so worth it. There are two ways you can help the heroic Hilltop Youth, Jews and righteous Gentiles. One is you can go to our Hebrew main page, hayamin.org, and you can click on the donate button. The page is in Hebrew, but we have a donate button in English on top. Click on the donate button. In several minutes, you can easily and conveniently donate. And if you don't want to do it online, you can do it by sending checks and money orders made out to J.T.F. And you send it to J.T.F. P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York 11365. This is your way to really show all these self-hating Jews and all the evil people, the Kamala Harrises of the world, and the UN, and the European Union, and all these Nazis, and all the Muslim terrorists, and all the other evil people that want Israel to go under. This is your way to say to them, no, we're going to support the Jews that are your biggest nightmare. The Hilltop Youth are the nightmare for these people, because against all odds, again, they have their own government against them, their own army. Not the average soldiers likes them, but the generals and the leaders of the army are against them, because all the leadership in Israel, in order to get to leadership, you've got to be a traitor. And they're all, and the media, and they're all against them and condemning them, and they're terrible, and they want to indict them, and they want to make up lies about them, and then they don't have evidence to indict them because they didn't do anything wrong, so they put them in administrative detention where they have no charges against them. Even they just put them in prison because they feel like putting them in prison for with no charges. I mean, with all this against them, but they have one thing on their side. Hashem Yitbarach. The God of Israel is on their side. And someday, the whole Jewish people are going to be like the Hilltop Youth. And then we will be a light unto the nations and a holy nation and a nation of priests. And then the world will be redeemed. And the evil people of the world will get what's coming to them. And the good people will get the reward that they so richly deserve. That day will come. The prophets in the Bible promise us that day will come. But we have to bring it closer, and we have to do whatever we can to make a difference. And the way to make a difference is to support the heroic Hilltop Youth. You cannot possibly come up with a cause more just, more noble than this cause. And it gives you, if you ever wonder, what am I in this world for? What is all of this? This is a damn good reason to be in the world, to support the Hilltop Youth. That's a great reason. That's a great reason to be in the world. David?
I don't know if everybody realizes it, but we just witnessed a coup in the Democrat Party. I notice I don't say Democratic because there's nothing democratic about them. How many times have you heard them pull this term from their playbook? Our democracy. Somebody put together a video of various people in the media and other Democrat supporters who it just shows one famous Democrat person in power to another, to Kamala Harris, to Joe Biden. Our democracy, and it cuts from statement to our democracy. It's like this is the DNC's playbook. Their key words, our democracy. Well, you just saw in the primaries, Joe Biden won handily. I don't know if he got every single vote, but he was close to every single vote if it wasn't every vote. And after the debate with Donald Trump, Jill Biden said, "You did great." Like she was talking to a 5-year-old. "You answered every question, Joe." And then a week later, they tell him to drop out.
You mean Jill Biden, his wife? Just so
Yeah, Jill Biden.
His wife, yeah. Okay.
So they tell him he has to drop out. Well, he's the one that people made donations to. His war chest was over $100 million. He's the one that everybody in the Democrat Party voted for. And they took that all away from him. After how many years of saying there's nothing wrong with him mentally, that he's sharp as a tack in meetings, he knows what's going on, he knows what he wants to do. Well, we all knew he didn't. We all knew physically and mentally he was so frail and getting worse every day. So they took everything away from him in spite of how people voted and in spite of how much money people donated to him. Well, maybe these same people don't want their votes going to Kamala Harris. I think Kamala is the way you don't say it, so I'll say Kamala. And people don't want their money, don't want their votes going to her. But it doesn't matter. They're just going to take it from Biden and give it to Kamala and not give anyone else a chance. She is the princess and heir apparent to the throne in the Democrat Party, irrelevant of what the Democrat voter wants. You've been stepped on, but of course you're too stupid to realize it, and you're too stupid to vote for someone else to teach the Democrat Party a lesson. That's your typical, I would say American, but it's Western civilization. Just stupid.
By the way, just a question. When Kamala Harris said to us, or Kamala Harris, or whatever her name is, when she said to us dozens of times that Joe Biden is perfectly fit to be president, that she works with him all the time, that he's absolutely qualified, that there's no problems with him mentally or otherwise, or his cognitive state, no problems whatsoever, was she being honest? This is for 3.5 years she was telling us this. Was she being honest? And if the answer is no, if she was lying and endangering the country by putting someone who's senile in charge of the United States of America, endangering the country and endangering the world like this, if she lied about this, how can you trust her on anything else? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, the Democrats gave you some choice, a senile old fool or a retard, a giggling retard. You know the Democrat Party is against the wall on the border, but why do they have walls all around their convention center? You know, they tried to defund police all over the country, but why do they have police? Lots of police all over the convention center. Why isn't it what's good for thee is also good for me? And why do you need the Democrats don't want you to have an ID when you go to vote. That anybody should be able to vote. ID is not required. Yet you needed an ID to get into the Democrat convention. Why is that? That they are such hypocrites, as bad as the Republican Party is, and I can't stand the Republican Party. The Democrat Party is bad beyond belief. It's unreal. They're such hypocrites. Everything they say and do is opposite. So if they say something, they do the opposite. And if they do something, they say the opposite. I don't know how anybody can vote for a party like that. And the latest thing I heard was Kamala Harris said, if you have a patent, if you come up with an invention and you have a patent on it and we want it, meaning the government, we're going to take it. And somebody said to her, well, isn't that illegal? She said it might be, but if you have the power and the will, and she said, I have the will, we're going to take it and use it for the government, and you'll get bupkis for it. She didn't say bupkis. I'm adding that. Something else about in America. In America, they call it lobbying. When you pay congressmen to do this or do that, that may bring jobs, will bring a lot of money, but big companies have big lobbyists. I remember when George Bush Jr. was president, General Electric was spending $107,000 a day on lobbies. By now, that number is way up because of inflation. Well, if the rest of the world calls lobbying bribery and corruption, but we see nothing wrong with it. Yet I want to go back to the 1950s for a moment. Not the pop music that your parents listened to, the rock and roll, the early rock and roll. They were on small record labels. If you're not into the 50s music, you've never heard any of these record labels. Record labels like Bruce, Paradise, G, Gone, End. That was a big record company because they had 3 labels. Chess and Checker, Aladdin, Federal, King. That was 2 different labels from the same company. And it went on and on like this. And they didn't have money to make national distributions of their records because they're small companies. They didn't have money to push their records, promote it. So the DJs were demanding money under the table. Pay me and I'll play your records. Well, isn't that just like lobbying? Isn't that just the cost of doing business? Why was that ruled illegal? What's wrong with paying a DJ? Here's some money, play my records, play my clients' records. What's wrong with that? But Congress could be lobbied and rake in millions, tens of millions of dollars, and that's legal. Why isn't it what's good for the, you heard the expression, what's good for the goose is good for the gander? Why isn't that the case in Washington? Why are they exempt from everything they do to us that hurts us? Hyam mentioned a congressman from Pennsylvania many years ago. I think his name was Sexton. He said, every time we're in session,
New Jersey. Sexton was.
Every time we're in session, all we do is hurt the American people. That was probably the truest statement to ever come out of the Capitol building. Well, the problem is, Benjamin Franklin said this country can only work if the people are vigilant and keep an eye on the government. But the people are apathetic. They're distracted with sports. And once again, I have to say, they're just too stupid to care. In fact, they're so stupid that if you look at a car manual from 50, 60, 70 years ago, it showed you how to adjust the valves. Today, the car manual warns you not to drink battery acid. It shows if you buy a ladder, there's warnings all over that ladder. There were no warnings when we bought a ladder back in the early 1950s, my family, so we could go up on the roof and clean the gutters out. There wasn't a single label on the ladder. If you look at the ladder, you couldn't even tell who the name of the company was because there was no labels.
You remember the story from the airport?
What, no bombs allowed?
Yeah, you remember that one?
Yeah, I remember when you told that one.
Should I tell it again?
Yeah, go ahead, because you have so many new viewers.
There's someone that I knew who worked at the airport, an Irish guy who worked there for many years, and he was passed over because of affirmative action, because of DEI. He was passed over. And the new manager came in and said that he had a new idea. He wanted to put signs up all over the airport on what you're not allowed to bring on the plane with you. They had signs like that in the past, but he wanted new signs. He wanted to make it more explicit. He wanted a drawing there. So he showed me my Irish friend showed me he showed me the sign, and the new sign had a picture of a bomb. Remember the old round bomb with the
fuse sticking out? It was a
fuse sticking
black
out,
round
lit up,
bomb.
lit up. You remember that?
Sure.
Okay. It had a picture like that of a bomb with the fuse lit up. And it said the things you cannot bring on the plane. And the first thing was bombs, explosive devices, and so on. You couldn't bring that on the plane. He had to say that, you know. And when I was at the airport, you know, my friend said, "Shh, don't say this," because at the airport I said, "Oh man, if I had known that, I wouldn't have brought my bomb with me to the airport." I said, "Wow, I didn't know you can't bring a bomb on the plane. Why didn't they tell us? Why didn't somebody tell us you can't bring a bomb on the plane?" I mean, can you believe this? Now, of course, I was only joking. I didn't have a bomb. I wouldn't put a bomb on a plane. I'm not a Muslim terrorist. But can this is the type of thing that he spent money from the Port Authority of New York, because the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey controlled the airports in New York City. And he spent money, and that comes from the taxpayers. He took money out of the budget to put up big signs of bombs saying this, you're not allowed to bring this on the plane. Wow. I'm glad we have something that truly informs people about something they didn't know about before. And this is, anyway, whatever.
This is where we are intellectually.
Yeah. DEI. Now we're going to have a DEI president. We already have a DEI vice president. We're going to have a DEI president.
Well, I was watching, once again, college-age kids, but not necessarily in college, although some of them were. And in the past, I gave you some of the questions. How many continents are there? The most common answer is 3. One guy said 15. Nobody got the 7. That's how many continents there are, in case you really don't know. Another question, a new question, is how much is 3 plus 3 divided by 2? Nobody got that. One answer was 6, because I don't think they knew what divided meant, because they're taught absolutely nothing in school. One of my friends at the gym, an older man, he moved to Florida from Arizona, and he was a high school teacher, and he was told, don't teach anything but computers. He wanted to, educate his students in his class. And they told him, no, just teach computers. He was conservative. He wasn't going to indoctrinate anyone, but ultra conservative. But just teach computers. And I told you the story where one of my table tennis players couldn't read an analog clock, which is something we learned to do in nursery school. Of course, in those days, just about every clock was analog. Well, here's something good. I hope it's true. It's so easy to be fooled by artificial intelligence. Taylor Swift is supporting Donald Trump. I never heard Taylor Swift sing. I didn't know what all the fuss was. I knew she was a good looking woman, but I never heard her sing until about 6 months ago. I listened to one of her songs and I shut it off halfway through. This is what all the fuss is about. But at least, and she's been
She's not supporting Trump.
No, you think it's AI?
She herself said she's not supporting Trump.
Oh, because I heard this past week that.
No, she said it's not true. No.
Oh, so then it is artificial intelligence.
No, it's not true.
So you got to be so careful. You can't tell what's real because the artificial intelligence looks so real. I know in a flat painting where you create a painting through AI, they always screw the hands up. They give you 6 fingers, 7 fingers, 3 hands, and that's how you know it's artificial intelligence. But it's much more real in video. I saw Morgan Freeman do a video, and it looked so real, and it sounded like it could be him because it was conservative, but it wasn't. It was artificial intelligence. And that made me think, how do you know if the president is talking about, we were just attacked? You remember War of the Worlds with Orson Welles? And everybody panicked. They went out into the streets to see the invaders. Well, how do you know the president is going to say we've been nuked? And nobody attacked us at all, not even with a dart gun. How do you know if it's artificial intelligence? It could get really dangerous.
With Kamala Harris, you know that there's no intelligence. None whatsoever. I can't believe that I can't believe Biden is president, but I can't believe Biden's president and she's going to replace him. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. But anyway, go ahead. It's just
From the frying pan into the fire.
can't believe it.
Also, these clowns in Washington, who I said a few shows ago, should be forced to wear red noses so we could spot them wherever they go. Red noses at all times, clown noses. We're now paying $601 billion in interest on our debt every year. Before long, I don't know how much longer it's going to take. Our whole budget is going to be the debt if we don't stop this maniacal spending. And if you look at Biden and Harris, they talk about how they are going to, or when Biden was running, now it's Harris, they're going to bring prices down with price controls if necessary. Well, they're in office right now. Let's see them bring prices down. I just saw gasoline go up another 10 cents a gallon. Gas was $2.09 for name brands when Donald Trump left office, $2 for off brands.
Inflation went from 1% under Trump to double digit. That's the great record of Kamala Harris on inflation. And she, by the way, she's more of a socialist than Biden. She wants massive increases in spending. She's promoting the Green New Deal and massive new spending on it. Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Well, Biden's a socialist. She's an actual communist.
No. Her economic policy, and by the way, people say, "Oh, why did Trump say that about her?" Tell me what part of her economic policy is not taken right out of Das Kapital and the Communist Manifesto. It literally is the type of she has platforms and proposals that are the type of proposals that Karl Marx proposed. This is what Marxism is. This is what Marx proposed. It's not an exaggeration at all. Not at all.
She doesn't talk about equality anymore. She talks about equity because she said we didn't all start at the same place. Well, it's been that way through history. Why is it now we have to have equity when anybody who came to this country, and I'll use my father as an example, he spoke very poor English. At most, he had an 8th grade education, but he got 2 jobs. One of them was a conductor on a subway back in the days. This is so long ago when the doors were manual and they had a conductor and they had to crank the door open at each door. So he saved his money and started his own business. And out of all the Jewish people that were in the same business, he was the most successful. He didn't start at the top. He worked his way from nothing with not even a high school education and very poor English. It got better, but he always mixed up because he was from the Russian states. He always got his V's and W's mixed up. But his customers loved him. He was truly a gentleman. Everybody loved him. He was as I mentioned in a show a while ago, he was the male version of Chaim's mother. Chaim's mother was one of the sweetest ladies I ever met. My father was one of the sweetest men I ever met. And he started at the bottom and worked his way up. He didn't start halfway up the ladder.
By the way, equity. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish what you're going to say.
So why do we have to have equity? What's wrong with equal opportunity? Remember, the left was screaming equal opportunity for decades. When they saw third worlders just couldn't cut it. They couldn't compete against whites and Asians. Now they want equity. They want equal outcomes.
Equity means that in the end, we're all going to have equal amounts. We're all going to have equal assets. That is the definition of communism. That's the pure definition of communism. And Kamala Harris, you can see this. You can look at it. You look at it on Google or YouTube. She has called for this. She has said, she's made speeches saying we need equity. Equity is pure, that's pure communism. That means when she says we didn't start in the same place, we all got to end up with the same outcome. In other words, we all have to have equal amounts of everything. That is the definition of communism. And that is literally what she's advocating. We have never had a major party candidate for president this extreme. Never.
I only have two more. They're saying, I don't live there, but Chaim does. Of course, he lives in one of the boroughs. So much crime in New York City now, it's impossible to live there. Warehouses are being robbed by migrants. In where you live, is it impossible to live? Do you feel safe in the streets? Do you feel safe in your house?
My neighborhood was absolutely safe when I was growing up. It was a Jewish neighborhood. And so there was no crime in the neighborhood. Nobody robbed anybody. I mean, you'd have people from outside the neighborhood who would come in to rob. But the streets were clean. It was a nice neighborhood. And it was perfectly safe. Then Asians moved in, and Asians also don't commit crimes. At least they don't commit crimes against non-Asians, that's for sure. And so with the Jews and the Asians, everything was fine. Now, there are homeless people and tents being set up on street corners in my neighborhood. Homeless people. You can't walk down the street without people begging for money. You have people dealing drugs to young people in my neighborhood. This is what it's come to. We're talking about a white, Jewish, and Asian neighborhood. And that's one of the safe neighborhoods. And they're dealing drugs, and they're stealing, and there's vandalism and graffiti all over the place. And they're defecating on the floors and urinating all over the sidewalks. I mean, it's just savage behavior. This is everywhere you go. It is, in my lifetime, I've never seen it this bad. I've never seen it this bad. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Well, I moved out here to Arizona in 2009. And Ashadina and myself go to the gym every weekday morning. We're there between 9 and 9:30. And we get out we're there probably 50 minutes. And I don't even bother locking my car. And it's so hot in Arizona, especially this summer. This summer is brutal. It's so hot here. I crack the windows about 3 inches. The car's not locked. All 4 of my windows are down about 3 inches. Nobody would think of taking your car. Nobody would think of stealing anything in your car. We've gone to sleep where we forgot to lock the front door. Nobody comes in. I'm just afraid a wild animal might come in, so we usually do lock the doors.
We're also afraid of wild animals in New York City.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the 4-legged kind.
Yeah. Okay.
Because there have been black bears sighted here, and
we have black
somewhere
bears.
in my town.
We also have black bears, but anyway, go ahead.
Somewhere in my town.
I'm talking about nature. That's all. Okay.
Somewhere in my town, a cougar is seen every day somewhere. And we've had coyotes pass by in my backyard. And sometimes you see one, and it's the dominant male, and he's pretty big. Sometimes you'll see 2, and they're either juveniles, or I once saw 3, or they're the female coyotes. But once there's 2 or 3, they have a pack mentality. And just a few miles down from my house, where one of the Diamonds who recorded Little Darling lived, I shouldn't say a few miles, it's less than half a mile. Coyotes did bite people walking their dogs. So yeah, coyotes are dangerous. I don't think they can open your door even if it's not locked, but they can be dangerous. I saw them coming, and I was standing in the kitchen. So as soon as they got near the house, I threw the door open. It's a sliding door, so it made a lot of noise, and I stepped out, and they took off. Had they come at me, I don't know what I was going to do. I certainly didn't have a gun in my hand, but I wasn't afraid because these were smaller, but they did have two of them. You start a pack mentality. I just wanted to just touch on Dalton, Chicago, the mayor there. She's lawyering up. She's in trouble. The town council fired her police commissioner, or police chief, I should say, and the police chief came out and said she's made
You
millions.
mean Illinois, you don't mean Chicago.
It's near Chicago, but yeah, it's
Illinois.
Dalton, Illinois. I think it's just
Illinois, yeah.
southeast or southwest of Chicago.
Right.
And she's also the township supervisor of, I always forget this name. I don't know why. But she's a supervisor in another town. That's where the bulk of her income comes from, not counting the corruption and the graft. But she's in trouble now. The FBI's been investigating her. And get this, the town council, I know you're going to roll your eyes, but even a stop clock is right twice a day. The town council hired Lori Lightfoot to investigate her. And her report was excellent. She really went after her.
People don't know who you're talking about.
Lori Lightfoot is the previous horrible mayor of Chicago. The one they have now is even worse, but she's the horrible mayor of Chicago. Remember when she forced everybody to wear masks, but she went to the beauty, and you couldn't go to the beauty parlor, but she went to the beauty parlor, no mask, because she said she cares about her personal hygiene as if no one else does. What does she think this is, the Middle Ages?
Her successor, by the way, said that the mayor of Chicago, he said he welcomes the anti-Israel Hamas supporters, the demonstrators. He said, it's wonderful to have them come to Chicago. We welcome them here. That's what he said. That's what he said.
Well, because of what's going on with the Hamas supporters and the Arabs themselves all over Europe, Taylor Swift was supposed to do a concert in Austria. Now, she is pro-Hamas and pro-Hezbollah and anti-Israel. But because of what the Arabs are doing in Austria, she canceled her concert. They're too savage for her, but they're not savage enough for Israel. Is that what she's trying to tell everyone? Mm-hmm. Why didn't she go ahead with the concert and let the Arabs do what Arabs do? And my last thing is, 2 weeks ago, I told you about the Jews going to the Catskill Mountains when we were kids, and I got a lot of compliments that it brought back such memories. Even Christian people said it was a trip down memory lane. And one of them even a few of them actually went to a few of the hotels, not realizing they were 100% Jewish. It's not that they weren't welcome there, they certainly were. I remember one year at the show in the nightclub, Whitey Ford was in the front. Whitey Ford was a Hall of Fame pitcher for the New York Yankees in the 1950s and early 60s. Well, I got a few questions. Like you said, you went there for the whole summer. Was your father a teacher? He didn't have to work all summer? And the answer was no. A lot of the families that went up all summer, what happened was the husband stayed the first week, and then he went back for the rest of the week to go to work. And then he'd come up Friday morning and stay the weekend, then go back to work Monday morning and make that 2-hour trip each time and do that all summer long until our last week there. And then he'd spend the whole last week with us. And that's how, my mother, we were there every summer, all summer. And so were the people at our table at the dining room. And my mother used to play mahjong with the women. And that's what they did. The men would come up on weekends, except for the first and last week where they'd have a real week off vacation. And that's it.
Yes, this was a different country at that time, and it's a different country now from what it will be next year. If Kamala or whatever her name is if she gets in, God forbid. And I'm really, really concerned about Israel because of what they plan to do to Israel. I think it's a very, very, very dangerous situation we're in. And if we had good leaders in Israel, it wouldn't make a difference, because good leaders would ignore what Israel can go it alone easily and should. But we don't have good leaders in Israel. And that's another issue here, where we support Moshe Feiglin and the Zehut Party. That would be good for Israel. But anyway, right now, at least, we're making a difference with the Hilltop Youth. We're trying to get Israel ready for what will happen after the election, because there could be a real very serious problems and danger at that time. We need those Hilltop Youth as strong as possible. We're trying to do everything we can. J.T.F, if you care about Israel and love Israel and the Jewish people, J.T.F is the group that you should be supporting, and that you should be helping and participating with. In your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. For J.T.F, until next week, and for David Ben Moshe, this is Chaim Ben Pesach. Shalom.